Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today. We are going to give people just a few minutes to join, but I wanted to introduce myself. I am Catherine Ring, as Chief Marketing Officer for ZSuite Technologies, and joining us today to host this webinar and give us some great information is Nathan Baumeister, the CEO and co-founder of ZSuite Technologies. We are conducting this webinar live, and we'll be happy to answer questions at any time. I'm going to be in the chat, and Nathan will answer from the stage. We have about 15 minutes of content planned, and then about a 15-minute demo. So really, we'll have plenty of time to answer questions along the way. We have found that Google Chrome works best for this platform. And so if you're having any problems with sound or connectivity, I would suggest switching to Google Chrome. We will also be sending out a recording of the webinar immediately after it ends. So you will get this and be able to share it with other people or rewatch it or anything like that that you need to do. So again, welcome to our webinar. This is ZEscrow 101, and Nathan, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you, Catherine. And thank you all for joining. It's always a pleasure to be able to spend time with financial institutions who are either currently working with us or looking to work with us. It is a rare privilege to be able to be part of an organization of which we get to dedicate all of our times and talent to serve you. It's a really important industry full of just wonderful, fantastic people, and we get huge amounts of satisfaction in being able to help you grow and thrive, which I think is a great transition to talking through a little bit about what it is that we do here at ZSuite. So as Catherine mentioned, the purpose of today's webinar is kind of like a ZEscrow 101. Who's it for? What is it? And let's actually look at the thing. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. But I always like to start with, what is our purpose? What is our mission? What is it that ZSuite Tech that we're focused on doing from a very high level? So this is our mission statement: make commercial banking easier and thrive together. This drives the strategic decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis. This drives how we go about doing our business, the products that we build, and the features that we build. When we talk about making commercial banking easier, we know that this is a critical area for financial institutions who are focused on building out the commercial side of the house. And as we have gone down this path of making commercial banking easier, the first opportunity that we've found to really make this happen is when it comes to commercial escrow and sub-accounting, which we're going to be talking about a little bit today. And the product that we do to be able to help with that is called ZEscrow. But the second piece of this is in Thrive Together. We want to make sure that all that we're doing, that our organization is ensuring that we're all coming together to be able to thrive. It's not just about surviving. It's not about just getting from one day to the next. It's about truly thriving. And when we think about that, for purposes of, while y'all are on the phone, is yourselves as individuals, the goals that you have in your roles, and then your organizations that you have. But we also look at this in regards to the people that we work with as well as your clients. And so one of the things that we always like to call out is when we talk about making commercial banking easier, it's not about just making it easier for you and for you to thrive, but it's also to be able to make it easier for your clients to actually be able to do so as well and to be able to thrive. And we just feel amazingly privileged that we're able to do this across multiple financial institutions. We have over 100 financial institutions that we work with across the United States. And across the nation. You can see that of our over 100 financial institutions we work with, we have coverage where there's a headquarters in at least 31 states. And obviously, several of our clients have branch locations in other states as well. So we share this to say that the scope of which we are applying ZEscrow and the way that we are helping to be able to help grow commercial deposits in a very efficient and effective way is something that we've been able to find broad-based adoption to, and that also then provides us even more input to ensure that we continue to improve the product and improve the services so that you all can continue to thrive and grow as well. So when we talk about ZEscrow 101, it is imperative that we start with talking about what is commercial escrow and sub-accounting. Kind of had a joke early on in our company. We started in 2019, but really jumped into the commercial escrow and sub-accounting space. We made the decision in the summer of 2020, spent a year developing the product, launched it in 21, kind of a soft launch. And then it was at the beginning of 2022 that we took it to market in a broad-based fashion. But very early on, we were engaged with a financial institution, a very large one, asset size measured in the hundreds of billions. And they had a particular individual that was hired onto the bank to be able to help them grow commercial deposits and commercial escrow and sub-accounting. And she told me at the beginning of her tenure there that she spent the 6 months basically going around the bank saying, no, 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 not that escrow. A lot of people, when they hear escrow, they thought, oh, mortgage, escrow payments, perhaps, right? And it's like, no, there's actually these other broad applications across multiple industries that is grossly underserved, but are wonderful deposits because they're attached to very profitable clients. They are typically fairly low cost and very, very good clients, very good accounts to be able to service. The problem is that historically they've been very difficult to service. So though the cost of funds was low, the interest expense, et cetera, the cost to serve was extremely high. And the reason that is, and this is why I want to go into a little bit of what what commercial escrow and sub-accounting are, is to be able to kind of play that out, why that's the case. So when we talk about commercial escrow and sub-accounting, there's basically two big general use cases. One is going to be three-party accounts, and that's what you're looking at right here. For most of the accounts that you typically do as a financial institution, you have two-party accounts. The money is held at your financial institution, and then the person who both owns the money as well as the person who is managing the money or the signer on that account, that entity is the same. Now, you might have it where it's an individual, you might have it where it's a joint ownership, you might have it where it's a commercial entity, right? But it's typically this two-party relationship. Once you actually dive into escrow accounts or trust accounts or custodial accounts, there's various different names for it. You add an additional party. That's why we call them three-party accounts. And that creates a whole bunch of complexity. So for three-party accounts, what you have is the financial institution is where the money is held. There is some sort of company or entity who is managing the money. They are the signers on the account, but they don't actually own it. The money belongs to a customer. So when you get into these three-party relationships, what happens is you break the data hierarchy of your typical bank tech stack, right? Because most things, both within a core system as well as digital banking, it's okay, I'm going to hold the money, and that is owned and managed by the same individual. So when you think about access, when you think about interest, when you think about statements, when you think about when money needs to be distributed, when you think about all of those things, it kind of breaks that system, it breaks that mold, and basically creates a lot of manual effort to be able to make sure that that works appropriately in an efficient manner. But the other piece that makes three-party accounts complicated is this is a favorite target for legislators. They feel like they need to protect the customer whose money it is from the company who is holding the money. Now, it would be cool if there was like a national board of escrow and, they came up with rules and said any type of account that's a three-party account, here's the rules to follow. But that's not how it has worked here in the United States. You actually have a lot of variability. So the first level of variability is based off of industry. So different industries have different rules that they need to follow when they're dealing with a three-party account. Then the next level is use case. There's actually different rules for different use cases, even in the same industry. So I'll just pick on law firms as an example. There are certain types of transactions and times when they can put money in their IOLA account or IOLTA account, which I think many of you are familiar with. It's their lawyer trust account. where they can pool their money. The interest on that does not go to the law firm, nor does it go to the beneficiary. It goes to the State Bar Association or IOLTA committee or whatever, depending on the state. And there's rules that they need to follow in that case. However, they have other use cases, qualified settlement funds, as an example, custodial funds. Maybe they're doing an escrow transaction for M&A, right? When you come to these different use cases, there's different rules. So the first level is industry. The second level is going to be the specific use case. And the third one is who's the legislative body passing the regulations. In some cases, you have it at the national or federal level. A good example of that would be 1031 exchanges. That is an IRS code, and therefore it is a federal tax code that is, uniform across the nation. The next level is state. It's actually 1031s is a good example of this. Though there's a federal IRS code, states sometimes have their own rules also applying to 1031 exchanges. But another example from a state perspective is security deposits. When a landlord or a property manager holds money for a security deposit, those rules can vary state by state of what needs to be done with the interest or reporting or certain notifications or distribution of funds, et cetera. And then the third one would be the local legislator. So you can actually have different rules in that case. For security deposits, Illinois has a certain set of rules. The Chicagoland area has additional rules on top of those state rules. You have other examples from municipalities. There are certain municipalities that say when the local government is holding funds for specific purposes, there are certain reporting requirements and access that certain city councilors need access to, right? So that's why it's complicated, right? Every industry, every use case, and then depending on where the jurisdiction actually lies can change what needs to be followed, both from a banking perspective as well as your commercial client perspective. The other big use case when it comes to commercial escrow and sub-accounting, we call them subledger accounts. And so these don't have a third party, so they're still just a two-party account. But the second party, which would be some sort of commercial entity, in this example, we're using a municipality, has a chunk of money, but they want to subdivide it for certain reasons. And when they want to subdivide it for certain reasons, there's certain rules that they want to follow within those subdivisions. So perhaps the municipality has one account, they have 800,000. But of that 800,000, it's actually earmarked for specific projects, and they might have specific reporting requirements that they want to be able to have or need to be able to have, and they want to break up those funds. That doesn't mean they want to necessarily open up separate accounts, but they want to have walls that go between each of those separate accounts. So when we talk about commercial escrow and sub-accounting, that's what it is. Now, who are the folks that are using these applications? What are the types of commercial customers? There's a lot of them in the U.S. This isn't an exhaustive list. There are others. I would say that a lot of the others kind of are a long tail, but they could be very interesting deposit veins to dive into. But we've highlighted here property managers, 1031 exchanges, and law firms. Each of these, there is a bunch of deposits that are available, a lot of companies to be able to build relationships with, and a lot of success to be had. Going beyond these top three, you can see many others: nursing homes, municipalities, funeral homes, real estate offices, nonprofits, et cetera, et cetera. Lots of opportunity. But let's just dive a little bit into some of these and look at, overall, here's some of the total opportunity in the U.S. And then what are some specific data that we're finding of these types of verticals that are actually utilizing the platform, just to give you an idea of what the cost of funds is and perhaps what the average balance per organization is. So we have three different types here: property managers, law firms. This would be the use of law firms for custodial accounts or very specific escrow accounts that are individualized. And then obviously IOLTA and IOTA accounts are also accounts at the law firm, but used for a separate purpose. But you can see for each of these, cost of funds, property managers, this is the main use case that we have here is 23 basis points. For law firms, 52 basis points. And for IOLTA accounts, 36 basis points. So very cost-effective deposits. The average organization, so if we took all the property managers that are holding security deposits and looked at the average of what they're holding at any given time, about 70,000. whereas law firms, both the custodial trust account type usage as well as the IOTA or IOTA type account usage, over $300,000 in average balances per organization. So a lot of great opportunity, a lot of different ways that people are using it. You could see cost of funds oftentimes very low. There are certain use cases where the cost of funds are higher, but that's something that we're happy to work with both our clients as well as our prospects to talk through which verticals you're most interested in and what we have learned in going to market for those specific verticals. So, okay, so now we've talked about what is commercial escrow and sub-accounting in general. We've talked about who it's for, as well as talked about some performance metrics and seeing what's going on, as well as the opportunity that exists within the U.S. market. Now let's look at what is ZEscrow specifically, and how have we built technology to be able to make what is one of the most complicated cash management or treasury management use cases in the US banking system and made it very simple and easy to use. So I'm going to switch over to share my screen to go through a demo. Just give me a moment as I switch from one to the next. All right. And just as a reminder, please feel free to type any questions or comments on the chat. We will be watching that throughout. I think a lot of your questions might come up as we're going through the platform if there are specific things that you want to look at here. So we are looking at the ZEscrow platform. This is a live instance of a demo financial institution. This is a generic state bank. Please no worries if your name is State Bank, we're not showing your data. When we think about the ZEscrow platform, there's a couple things that I always like to share. The first is that this application, as I mentioned before, very modern. We just built it not too long ago. So we built it, API first. We built it as an application that's available in various different modalities. We've built the user interface to be both responsive and adaptive, all those fun things. So with that, there are 3 types of users in a broad sense. What we're looking at here would be the users at the financial institution at State Bank. This would be you all. The second one would be for the organization themselves. So 1031 Properties, who is a qualified intermediary, they would have access to their own instance of ZEscrow, and they'd have be able to get there. Smith Law would have their own. Travis County would have their own, etc. And so that's the second level of access. The third level of access would be to the beneficiary. So in the case of a 3-party account, there is limited and optional access to that third party, to that beneficiary, and it can be managed by the commercial customer that is working with them. So it could be as small as just having them filling out a W-9 form or getting a statement, or it could be as far as giving them read-only access to be able to actually look at their account online. Within those 3 levels of access, there are multiple ways to be able to both get the information as well as take action on the information. So the first piece is you all at the financial institution, you are able to access the user interface, and you are also able to drill down into any of your clients and do things for them and on their behalf. And there's an audit trail to be able to show which actions are taken by which users and all of that stuff, which is, I know, very important for financial institutions. But you are able to log in. And when you log in, we have 2 different ways to be able to access. We could do a single sign-on with your Active Directory or Azure, or if you're using Okta or something like that, or you could manage credentials separately. We're able to do either one. The second level of access, which as I mentioned before, are the commercial customers themselves. They are able to log into the user interface and self-serve and take action on their accounts, opening them, closing them, transferring funds, and I'll show you all those things within the user interface. In that way, we also have 2 options here as well. We are able to allow them to single sign-on through your digital banking provider or your online cash management tool. Or again, we can manage credentials separately where they have access to it. We prefer single sign-on, but there are some cases where the financial institution either wants to or needs to go with separate credentials. However, that's not the only way that actions can take place when it comes to a commercial customer. Though you doing it for them and on their behalf, or them self-serving, is the typical use case for this. And the large majority is self-service because they're excited that they're able to log in and do all this stuff on their own. But if they have data that can be put in a file format like CSV or Excel or a JSON file or whatever, that can be picked up and can be used to be able to take bulk action. Either in a one-time use case. For example, you bring on a property manager who has thousands of units or even hundreds of units, and they're like, I'm not going to type all that stuff in. It's like, great, let's just get that data in a nice CSV file, and we'll do a bulk action. Or it can be done continuously. So, hey, I can pull off of, as a commercial customer, I could say I could pull off the information from my property management system or my law tech platform that has information that's needed, and I want to get it across to you weekly or monthly or something like that. It can be updated automatically based off of that, to all the way being able to have direct API connections. All right, so a lot of options on how they might be able to have access. So with that, let's talk a little bit about how this works on the back end, just because I think it's helpful, and then we'll spend the bulk of our time actually looking at the platform and what actions can be taken. So the way this works typically is that when a financial institution, in this case State Bank, has a new client that wants to use the ZEscrow platform, and you can name it whatever you want, that's just what we call it. It's a fully white labelable solution. I want to use ZEscrow at State Bank to be able to manage my escrow accounts or trust accounts or sub accounts. So the first thing that will happen is you all at the bank will go through your process to be able to open up what we term a holding account on the core system. And then they would be invited, the commercial customer would be invited to ZEscrow, and that's where they could then start taking action. So what that means is 1031 properties. If you looked on State Bank's core system, you would see a holding account for $540,000. And then this ZEscrow system sits on top of it to be the ledger for the individual accounts. 1031 properties isn't a great example right now just because they have one sub account, but if we came over to Smith Law, they have two sub accounts that make up the 31,000. Travis County has 6 sub accounts that make up the 270,000, and Rosewood Properties has 5 accounts that makes up the 35,000. Right. So the information for those 5 sub accounts are hosted on your instance of the ZEscrow platform. The 35,000 as a whole is sitting in a holding account for Rosewood Properties. And then there are feeds going back and forth between ZEscrow and your core to be able to ensure that everything is reconciling and working in the way that it should. So when we dive into one of these, and I'll just pick on Travis County at the moment, this is what you as the banker, if you were going to do something for them, this is what you would see, but it's also the same thing that they would see as well, right? There's a long time best case or best practices that say the person that is doing the support as well as the person that's doing it, if you have the same view, it makes it a lot easier. So you have Travis County here. You can see the summary of the total balances. You can see transactions that are going in and out all the way back. You have a documents tab to be able to see any documents associated with the overall relationship. In this case, this is the statements, the monthly statements that are being produced here that they have access to. And then over here on the left is where you'll see them actually managing the sub accounts themselves. You'll see that there's 2 folders and then 1 sub account here. Within the folders, we can expand those to be able to see what those are. We found it has been very important to be able to make it easy for your commercial customers to be able to, on the fly, organize and create the data hierarchy of their different sub accounts. So they could just click here, add a new folder, name it whatever they want, and then create it there. And they have the ability to actually add child folders or subfolders underneath each of those, rename them, delete them. And that has helped to be able to make the management of these accounts extremely easy. That data hierarchy actually flows through all the reporting and statements. Now, if I click on an individual sub-account, you'll see the information that you would expect to see when you look at an account. What's the balance, accrued interest, posted interest, the details of the account itself, also with the ability to edit any of those details that they might need to. Again, it's a self-serve function here. They're able to transfer funds in and out of these accounts. So they have that master account or operating account at the bank, and they want to pull that money into the downtown park. They're able to do that, say what the amount is, schedule it, put a memo, review it, and then go ahead and execute that transaction. They can close the account. They could also add a beneficiary. So in this case, you'll notice that the beneficiary type of this account is just a sub account. But in some cases, you might find that you have commercial customers that it might start as a sub account, but then they need to add a beneficiary later. So they could do that right there. They are also able to close the sub account. This is inclusive of calculating any interest on that sub account and posting it on the sub account to the point of time when they close it. They're able to upload documents. So you'll see one here, a W-9, but you can pretty much upload any type of document that you want if you want it associated with the account. You have the ability to add specific notes. So if there are specific use cases or information that needs to be tracked, there is kind of this free field form for them to be able to do so. Coming back to looking just at another example to give you some other ideas here. So 1031 properties. This is a fun one because we can dive into this one for Lyle Simmons at 812 Rock Mountain here. You'll see there's a couple other options here. So first, this one is a beneficiary account. The beneficiary name is Lyle Simmons. They have the ability to invite the beneficiary to have read-only access. So just go to that email. You can send the invite or finish it later. But then they would have that read-only access here. The other thing that's interesting, and we'll talk more about this in just a moment, but when you start diving into commercial escrow and sub-account, one of the most complicated aspects of it is the interest calculations, as well as who gets the interest. So there's certain use cases where all the interest goes to the beneficiary. Some of it goes to the organization. Some of it goes to a third party. Sometimes it's split. 1031s oftentimes are one that's split. Here you could see that the 1031 qualified intermediary actually has the ability to not edit the interest rate overall, because that's what you're in charge of, right? You set the interest rate overall, but they are able to actually say, hey, right now we're sharing 70%. Something happened. It actually needs to be 80% now. So they're able to actually update that and upload it on the fly. Which is a really, really cool feature and something that is very unexpected for most qualified intermediaries or other types of entities that have escrow accounts where interest needs to be split. When you come down, I'll just do one more example here just so you can see different levels of organization. Here we have a property manager. As I mentioned, security deposits is the typical use case from an escrow perspective. They have folders based off of the property, and then underneath the property, they have it for the different units. Let's say that it is time that they actually have a new unit that is being rented that they haven't had before, and they have the security deposit. When they open up a new sub account, they're able to name it whatever they want, right? So they could name it Unit 6A. They could put the name of the property if they wanted, or they could put the name of the person, right? They have the ability to put that account name and ID to be whatever it is that's going to make sense for them. Might be to match data that they have in another system. It could be just so that when they read it, it makes sense to them. And then here's where we define what type of beneficiary type there is. In this case, Sam is an individual, not a business, and there is definitely a beneficiary. So we're going to choose the individual. Since this is an interest-bearing account and at least a portion of the interest is going to go to that individual, we need to get a W-9 or W-8 form. That's why we ask country of citizenship. And then you can indicate which of the folders it should go in. Should it go in Main? Should it go into Abernathy? Should it go into Main Street? As you continue to open, it's like, okay, what needs to be created here? We need to get a W-9. When we look for this W-9, we have two different methods on how to be able to get it. We can email the W-9 to the beneficiary via DocuSign envelope, or they can manually upload it. If they're going to send it via email, they could put the beneficiary name and email address. That automatically creates that DocuSign envelope that goes to that beneficiary. If they're like, look, I already have a process, I get the W-9 or the W-8 right when we're getting the lease. I'm not going to send them a DocuSign. That's cool. If they have that W-9, they could take the W-9, fill out the information here. And once they fill out this information, they then can upload a PDF or image of that W-9. So we have that data artifact to be able to go back from an audit perspective or from a data perspective. If they don't have it right now, that's cool too. The account is open in the pending status and it's waiting for that W-9 to be complete. And we could do that right there. Once they do that, then they are able to execute on that account, bring funds over, and manage it from that perspective. Last thing I want to show from a user perspective is, they get the statements that are available. We have a toggle to be able to say whether or not they need statements at the sub-account level, where they can pull that information, or if they give the beneficiary access to be able to log in, they could see those statements or any other documents that they upload there. But they also are able to pull the reports. So there's a couple different reports that can be chosen from. Currently, in this view, I'm logged in as an FI user. So this is showing both the FI reports as well as the user reports. When a user is using it, they would just show the reports that they have access to. And then again, since I'm the FI user, I have to choose the organization. But if I was logged in as Rosewood Properties, then that would automatically default to that. You could pick the date range. You can then run those reports, and you can download those reports down as a CSV file to have access to it at any point in time, right? And so it's really important for us to be able to make sure that it is very clear that the data that is needed by both you as well as your commercial customers are available and can get access to all of those things. So that's high level kind of how it works. I showed you the different actions that can be taken, or a lot of the actions that can be taken through the user interface. And I would just remind you that all of those actions can be triggered via the user interface, but can also be triggered through data exports in a batch perspective, like a CSV or Excel file, or even from an API. So we've made sure that it's available for all different types of modes of service and banking that you need to provide to your commercial customers. Now, remember when we were talking about three-party accounts, how I talked about the complications that exist within three-party accounts and the different rules and how you have to follow them and stuff like that. How is it that on one platform we can manage 1031s, we can manage security deposits in all different states, even though there's different rules, that we can have municipalities, we can have funeral homes, etc.? Well, the way that we did that is we created a system that is very flexible, where we could create templates. So you can see here, I'm on the state bank side. I went over to the settings tab. You can see various different configurations or templates. Once we build a template, these are the rules that manage what a sub-account follows. And then once we build a template, we can then apply it as broadly as we want or as narrowly as we want. So for example, we could have default attorney. Any attorney user that comes on it will pick up this template and use it automatically, unless, of course, you go in and make a specific change. So that's fairly broadly. But you can have it very specific. You can have a property manager who might have security deposits in Massachusetts and in New York, and maybe in New Jersey. It's probably more likely that they have in New York and New Jersey. But we can have it where there's a template for that user that uses the New York template for their New York security deposits, and that would use a New Jersey template for that organization for their New Jersey security deposits. All right, so there's a lot of flexibility in how we use these templates. Building out the templates are pretty straightforward. It's something that we help with as part of our service because of all the different complications that could exist. But you can see a lot of different options here. But just as an example, from an interest perspective, what's the default rate that's going to get paid? Is there a rate period that needs to be associated? Who gets the interest? Is it split? Does it go to the beneficiary? Does it go to a third party? Who will keep a portion of the interest? What tiers do you need to add? What tiers do you need to add? What is the actual split that needs to go in? From a tiers that could be balance or sub-account age. Fun fact, we learned that sometimes the rules that have to be followed for certain escrow accounts change based off of how long the escrow account's been opened. Really fun and exciting stuff that you get to learn when you dive deep into commercial escrow and sub-accounting. But once you create all that, it's great. Then that template could be applied to specific users. Have various different other things here. For example, as a financial institution, we get information on that holding account that we've talked about before on who the signers are that you set up, but perhaps the users, the organizations that you are supporting here have other users that they want to add. So you can actually add, the bank can actually add different users, apply them to the appropriate organization to give them access. You can revoke and change roles, revoke access and change roles as needed. Lots of options on how to manage the platform and to be able to make it easy to use. The last thing that I would talk a little bit from a ZEscrow perspective, I spent a lot of time showing the technology and how it works. But there's no doubt this is a very complicated space. And there's not a lot of people who wake up in the morning and go to bed at night thinking about commercial escrow and sub-accounting. But we do, and we love it. And so though the technology is part of the solution, and that's what we demoed here, we also assume that we're going to be an extension of your team. From support or training, all the way to doing sales demos, right along sales demos with you to your commercial customers who might be end users. We just assume we're an extension of your team to be able to help you be successful. So though this might look, the user experience of, creating new sub accounts and stuff like that, it's pretty straightforward. But when you start talking about templates and following all these rules and stuff like that, it could get pretty detailed pretty quickly. And so we have a whole success team that's dedicated to being able to do that and to be able to help you. So from a demo perspective, those are the main things that I wanted to go through there. I hope that was helpful. It gave you an idea of the ZEscrow platform itself. Please feel free to share any questions that you have on the chat. If not, just wanted to say thank you for spending some time with us, allowing me to go through the live demo, as well as talking a little bit about who ZEscrow is for, what it's for, and what it actually looks like.
Great. Thank you, Nathan. Christina asked a question about getting a copy of the recording of the meeting, and that will be coming your way via email. It takes just a few seconds to kind of process once we finish the meeting, but that will come your way and you'll be able to watch or share the recording if you want to. And then we did want to invite you as well to our next webinar session. This is going to be happening just about a month from now, July 22nd. We are hosting a webinar called 2025 in Motion, Advancing Escrow Innovation. And this is going to be our gracious host, Nathan, once again. And he's going to be joined by our VP of Product, Curtis Whiting. And they are going to be talking about what we've released so far this year for ZEscrow and for our other product, ZRent. What some of the different statistics and things we've learned about usage of the platform are. And then also what's coming up as far as both core connections and features for the next few months, and a little bit of vision for beyond that. One of our core tenets as a company is, as Nathan said, thriving together. And that in this regard really means listening to our customers. And so we have heard from many of our existing clients and their end customers what they need from an escrow perspective, and are incorporating that into the platform. So you'll be able to see that in action, and also hear about ways that you could potentially contribute to that as a voice into what our next stages of development should be. So there'll be a link directly in that email that you get that also has the video in it in just a few minutes. And I'm not seeing any other questions come in, Nathan, so I think we can probably wrap it up.
Sounds great. Well, thanks again, everybody.
Bye-bye.